Well, I'm going to go ahead and call us to order, and then we'll do the roll call and then conduct the business so that we can get everybody back out of here. So I will start with, since we were yesterday with Commissioner Culbertson, we'll start with Commissioner Culbertson.
Here.
Here. Smith? I'm here. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Sneedman. Welcome. We're here today to hear a request for signature of a grant application by the County Attorney's Office for a Veterans Court. And so the county is the applicant for this grant, and it needs to be turned. The reason for the meeting being called as a special meeting is the application needs to be turned by 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we need to make sure that we get all of that put together. So with that, I will start with Mark. You can kind of give a little bit of information, and then we'll move over to Todd. And we have some questions, I believe.
Sure. Commissioners, I think as you just explained, this is about a federal grant for Veterans Court. And first of all, I want to make sure that everybody understands that I fully support veterans. I am a veteran, and I think that this is not about what this is for. It's about the process. And, at the end of the day, it's a noble thing that they're trying to do, but we still have processes in place that need to be followed. And the Board of County Commissioners needs to be involved in those processes when they have a potential financial impact on the county. So when this came to my office, normally we would review it, and at this point we would already have all these things taken care of. However, we didn't in this case. So again, we would have preferred to have done this not on a special meeting, but last minute, so here we are. I've provided some questions to you, and I provided them also to the county attorney so that hopefully he has a little time to prepare for them, and then I would just turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, we were notified with the grant pretty late, mid-February. It is a complicated grant. We had to ask assistance for someone who had worked with OJA that helped us facilitate the grant before. It took us quite a bit to get all the information acquired to get the grant process. Mr. Lawfrey, of course, has been informed. We talked to Mr. Knoll as well about needing even the access to getting the grant portal to be able to apply. We've been corresponding for the last few weeks. I think Mr. Lyon here, who's the Assistant County Attorney and the lead for our Veterans Court getting the grant process, met with Mr. Lawfrey Monday discussing all the needs and hopefully for the signature. We also understand Ms. Klasinski is out and appreciate, usually that would be the person.
She's back.
Oh, she's back. But usually
right.
She would be the one to have a signature. We requested it early in the morning before the board meeting, but probably when everybody was getting ready or going into the board meeting. Mr. Lawfrey got back to us, telling us that he would like us to also present this to the board. He submitted a series of questions to us this morning, and I believe Mr. Lyon is prepared to answer hopefully all of the questions that you might have. Again, we weren't trying to do anything nefarious. We've been very open about us wanting and trying to help out the veterans, and this is one of the big pushes. Senator Moran has especially set aside money for this, for our county to be able to receive funds to help out our veterans, and we're hoping to be able to do that. Of course, with any time you send out money, even though because it comes from the federal government, it's not just gifted. We have to do the proper procedures and applications for it. Therefore, that is why this process is going on, as you all are aware. And from that, I'll let Mr. Lyon answer hopefully all the questions you have or any other questions you might have.
Okay.
Commissioners, it may help. I did prepare something small to read you that should address most of the questions you may have, and so it may limit how many questions you have if I read this first, if that's okay.
Please do.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for calling the emergency meeting. My name is Chris Lyon. I'm Assistant County Attorney in the Leavenworth County Attorney's Office. I'm also an Iraqi war veteran. I'm also selected by the Supreme Court to sit on the Kansas Specialty Court Committee, which I still do. As you're aware, the County Attorney's Office was awarded $1 million in a non-competitive grant from Senator Moran's office for the implementation of a Veterans Treatment Court. While there was talk of the award last year, we were only advised that we had received it in February. I don't have the exact date. At this point, our office contacted someone who knew something about grants. We knew the grant writer for OJA had recently left, so we asked her to assist. She's been very helpful. Federal grants are something that we had never dealt with, and they are extremely complicated. As Mr. Thompson said, there was some communication between the county administrator and our office about the grant, but it wasn't the best communication, led to some confusion, and we have a deadline approaching. I did meet with Mr. Whopper on Monday. I answered as many questions as I could, and he provided I provided him some information that he allowed our grant writer access to the grant portal. So the process could begin. I was not aware there was a BOCC meeting, yesterday, and I found out after the meeting that all grants had to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So here we are. Once again, I apologize. With that being said, let's talk briefly about Leavenworth County. The Census Bureau has Leavenworth County as almost twice the national average of veterans in our population compared to other counties in Kansas. The VA is here, the domiciliary is here, many retirees. There are many justice-involved veterans in the community. Many struggle with drug and alcohol issues. Many have lingering effects from their service, such as PTSD. I was recently told that only 3% of the jail population at any one time are justice-involved veterans. So why focus on that population? That is because that number only comprises a portion of the justice-involved vets. Many vets don't consider themselves veterans. They don't associate. They have bad associations with their service, and they will not identify as a veteran or notated. Also, the majority of our offenders never go to jail. You can do a study at any one time throughout jail, and you won't find the majority of offenders. The number is simply, it cannot be correct. It's much higher. So the county attorney and I have spoken at VFWs throughout Leavenworth County. The community is excited for the VTC, that is Treatment Court. They say there is a need. We're looking to include even active duty soldiers, and we'll be meeting with the Fort to do that. The legislature has offered great incentives for those completing specialty court programs such as this. It's a wonderful time to start the VTC in Leavenworth with Senator Moran's help. So the purpose of the grant is to offer justice-involved veterans an alternative path through the justice system that's less adversarial and more therapeutic. Counseling, drug and alcohol help, etc. The program, while still in its infancy, will be a 5-step program based largely on the Johnson County model, which I invite everyone here to observe. It's fantastic. The 5 steps will be approximately 30 days, but that varies depending on compliance. Each step has progressively less oversight of the justice-involved veterans. The VA and their partners and our partners assist the VA and the veterans with navigating through the judicial system. Not all of them will qualify for services, even though they're veterans. Some have been discharged other than honorably or dishonorable, and sometimes that prohibits VA funding, which would be the majority of the funding for the Veterans Treatment Court. So the grant will provide funds for those to get services locally. We estimate the number, we don't have a specific number to estimate, but we estimated that number in the grant, the federal grant, Senator Moran's grant. In addition, the grant would provide for 1 full-time prosecutor. That's just an estimation to start the program. While the court will only be bi-weekly, in a few hours, there will be many things that have to be attended to. Filings, communications with judges, defense counsel, partners in the community, and the VA. The attorney has to be licensed. And as you may know, the pool of prosecutors is slowly declining and demand is growing. There must be a competitive salary for that. Large, very well-funded counties are short qualified attorneys at this time, such as Johnson, Wyandotte, Shawnee. All the tracking of the program will be done through the OJA. A corollary grant is being provided through them, and the requirements are that all statistics be kept. There are 2 grants. We will rely on their numbers. That grant also provides a BTC coordinator that will monitor the program here locally. They will work in-house and keep all records. That hiring process is currently underway with OJA and our office, and that is being funded by the other grant. In-house, we have competent staff, so the tracking of expenses is done through them and also through the mentor coordinator that will be hired. It is not expected in any way this should impact the year's budget for the county, as the line items for expenditures that would not be covered by the county regardless. An extra prosecutor salary, a part-time salary for a mentor coordinator, that's someone who organizes the mentors of the program. Those are all veterans. And supplies, generic supplies. There's also training expenses. The OJA grant will fund drug testing and the local court coordinator. The only possible overlap between the two grants is the training fund, which will be scrutinized after this meeting to make sure there are no issues. There will be no supplanting of funds or duplicate expenses. As far as I'm aware, there is no prohibition on using multiple grants at the same time. As soon as OJA found out that Senator Moran wanted to directly help Leavenworth, some of the original grant funds from the state-awarded grant were diverted to other counties in need, specifically for specialty court programs. Essentially, we got less money from OJA because Senator Moran specifically focused on Leavenworth, which is a good thing. Lastly, in 4 years, this grant will expire. If the success of the program can be demonstrated to you, hopefully the county and local partners will continue to fund the program. However, if the program is not successful, there will no longer be a funding requirement, but at least Leavenworth can say that we tried to help our local vets as much as possible. That, I would take any questions, Commissioners.
Commissioner Stephen, go ahead.
Can you give me an example of how, let's say the veteran that's not involved in the Veterans Court, how he interacts with the justice system, and then the veteran that's interacting through the justice court? What's the primary differences of how each individual would be working their way through the justice system?
So if you have, if I understand the question correctly, let's say we have two offenders. Both are veterans. One wants to go through the program and one chooses not to. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the program, based on the 5 stages, what it would do is offer assistance through the justice system. As you may well know, Mr. Thompson and I do daily, is we have an adversarial system with defense attorneys and a judge. And we're not at liberty to speak to defendants if they have counsel. There are motions that are filed, and there is no outside monitoring. If they apply for this and are accepted into the Veterans Treatment Board, it is less adversarial. They come in, they talk to the judge, what they can't normally do. The judge asks them, how are you doing this week? They get reports from the VA and outside providers. The judge will talk to them about 5 minutes, say, you did a great job this week. I've heard some good news about you. Keep it up. Here is something for you, a gift card or a gas card. And we walk them through this process. They have to want to engage in the process. Whereas a lot of people don't want to engage in that process. They have to want to get help. And getting help, they're taken from the normal prosecutorial court, adversarial court, and are given the opportunity, which is very intensive, to help themselves out, to get their issues in order, and to get in order anything that led them down to be the path to be a justice-involved veteran, counseling, drug, alcohol, abuse counseling, the housing, and get it through the VA. Mentorship is also a big component. And speaking with the VFWs, we have a huge community of veterans that are very interested. And the mentor program is every vet that goes through this will be assigned a mentor. It doesn't have to be from the same area of service. It doesn't have to be the same rank. But typically they're going to be retired. And they're going to help them. They're going to call them. They're going to be friends and get them through this process. These are things that you don't see in a standard judicial system.
Is there a difference in the level of the offense, like misdemeanors versus felonies?
Absolutely. For example, someone who commits a homicide or a heinous person crime wouldn't be taken into the court. It's not even possible. However, if you look at someone who has some drug abuse issues, DUI issues, very common, it's a veteran.
Yep.
This would be something that would be for them. Now, if there's a victim crime, domestic battery, for example, also there are numbers that say that there is an increase with batteries among veterans who have PTSD. Well, we would try to talk to any victim. If it's a property crime, we would try and reach out to them too to see what their input is. Mr. Thompson's always been very good about reaching out to victims in cases to see what their input is on resolution of the case. So that would be something too. No serious person crimes. These are people that want to get help, that can be helped. It's really going to come down to a lot of substance abuse issues.
Is this decided in your office who's accepted and who's not? Okay.
Yeah, and I've always been victim first, so what the victims want are always paramount to anything. So, but like Mr. Lyon described, this is a very hands-on approach that we again, like I said, less adversarial. We're not able to offer without this special type of court.
Commissioner Smith, you had a question?
Yeah. Thank you for taking away from Mike. A couple things. Just first of all, I don't think this is just my feelings. Being an Army brat, I don't think you can never do enough for the military and the people that's put on that uniform and the things they've gone through, especially when they're at a young age and things like that. And some of the things that we see from some of the deployments, the DUIs, the marijuana. On the other, and so I'm glad to see this is in front of us. I love special meetings like this. Hope we can get through this. My main question is, though, and I think you answered it, but I just want to be clear. The first 4 years of this grant, it sounds like everything's covered. Is that correct? In other words, I don't have to look at Todd come up here in 3 months and say, by the way.
No, my understanding is everything's covered.
Okay.
There would be no additional expenses between this grant and the OJA grant.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
For the record, I'll always by the way anyway, so just.
What's that?
I will always by the way anyway.
I know that. Thank you, man. Thank you, Chair.
You had a question?
You said you do have 2 grants in.
That's correct.
You've already received the 1 grant.
We're still
Okay.
working on the other one, but the other one is at the state level.
Right, the
and
state
this
level.
one's the
Okay.
county level.
And then, will this help with the caseload with community corrections at the county level? I don't know. You know the numbers of how many veterans are on, and I guess.
And potentially it could affect some of those numbers. The majority of people would probably come from the court services side of things, but potentially it could help.
It could lower our caseload by having people go through this program.
In theory, it should help us lower our workload, law enforcement's workload, everything like that, because if we can actually facilitate more people to be helped and healed, we'll see less crime, and that's one of the ways we'll actually see the effectiveness of the courts. It's been proven statistically that it's very effective, and I think Johnson County, who's been doing it for 10 years, has a 90% success rate without having any recidivism from those who've been able to go through the court.
That's impressive.
And so I think any measure that we can help, even if it's a small amount of people, is something that we should try to strive to do, and this is the best way we can facilitate doing it, and it being at least cost-free for the first 4 years. Hopefully, then we can demonstrate there is utility in this, and it's worth the money in the overall grand scheme of things.
And also, I'm sure part of the program was helping with people get employment and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then
it's everything about putting them back on their feet. I mean,
that's real
it's
important.
everything about them getting. And when Mr. Lyon discussed about going to see the Johnson County graduations, is what they are. It's nothing more moving than seeing those that graduate who are talking about where they came from, living in a car, to them living in a house, or and having their kids back, having a successful job, and realizing how far they have dropped from where they had been. And that's the type of things that, really we want to push for and see.
Just one more. Earlier you said that our veteran population is double of what other places are? Is that
in general?
per capita?
Yeah, I looked at the Census Bureau. I think it was from 2020, and the number was more than national average by quite a bit.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Just one question, and this just kind of a housekeeping thing for your benefit also. I have administered federal grants, and they are intensive. And so I hope you really, really understand what you're getting yourselves into. But beyond that, the reimbursement aspects of it, this is a reimbursable, are you going to receive the funds in advance, or do you have to submit to the feds and then they reimburse you for your expenses?
I would have to talk to our grant writer because it's a very complicated
Yes, it is.
process, and I don't know all the ins and outs. I
Okay.
apologize for not knowing.
No, that's okay, because I just want you to be aware that, when one of the questions I think that was in the list was the budget, is that with federal funds, oftentimes, and even state grants, oftentimes, the funds, you provide the service first. Then you have to demonstrate that you have done through all the hoops and filled out all the paperwork properly, all that stuff, and then you receive the funds. And so I want to make sure that you understand that you have to make sure that within your budget you can cover those expenses in the interim of providing the service. And that was just the question that I have, or something that you just really need to be cognizant of, because it can impact budgets, and it impacts budgets of oftentimes of some of our smaller nonprofit organizations for that very reason. And we have had nonprofit organizations within our county who actually went under because reimbursement did not come in
Timely manner.
in a manner that allowed them to.
They can't cover the gap.
They can't cover the gap. So
right.
that's the biggest concern that I have for you, is to make sure you are aware of that, and that you keep very close track of all of those things, and that you understand that if you miss something on the portal when you fill out one of the questions, or they don't like it, you're not going to receive your funds until that is all taken care of. And that's just an FYI.
No, we appreciate
Sure.
that. Yes. And honestly, when we received it, we realized how complicated, just as you said,
they are.
We were fortunate to have someone that's helping us through the process.
And that's fantastic. I wanted to make sure that you were aware, because I know that that's one concern that should be at the top of your list of, even throughout the grant process, is that that there may be a gap in funding. So, Mark, you had something?
Yeah, just a few follow-up things. One, I think what we're trying to say is that while applying for a grant is cumbersome, actually administering it is much more difficult.
Right.
So, and I know the person you have right now is doing the application process, is very qualified and competent, but they're not the person who's going to be administering the grant funds. So you have to have somebody who's familiar with federal grant funds. And that was one of my questions, is who's going to be administering. So that means tracking, coding, reporting. Any department that gets a federal fund has to have somebody designated, and you need to have somebody designated who's capable, who has some experience, because it's not easy. Number two, I think one of the questions I said was, what is the annual budget? And I don't think I heard the answer to that. How much is the annual budget? What's the annual spend for this program?
So there is no, it's just the implementation, we don't know what the annual budget is. So a proposed budget was put forth by the grant writer. That would, my thinking is it comes to about $200,000 a year.
So somewhere around $200,000 a year?
And I can get you a copy of that, but it's all speculative at this point. It was supplies for several thousand, training.
Right.
It was a salary and fringe benefits for a prosecutor to handle this. It was for defense attorneys, a big expenses for defense attorneys. And hourly, it was just a general billing hour of $200 an hour. And so that was estimated, and that came out to quite a bit, because we have 2 attorneys that will be with the BTC. So it's all speculative at this point, but I think it's approximately $200,000 a year.
So in 4 years, when your grant runs out, we can assume just, I guess, normal growth. This is probably a $250,000 expenditure for the county once the grant funds run out.
I think that too is speculative. I know that in the state right now there is a big push. They just hired a coordinator to oversee specialty courts at OJA. I have a call out to Heather Cessna, who's head of the Board of Indigent Defense Funds. They're looking to put a program in place to fund all defense attorneys, and they do fund defense attorneys throughout the state, depending on your location, if you're more in western Kansas or here. So that would be something that would be covered. I think that would be a very, very high estimate.
Just in listening to your narrative, it sounds like this is 2.5 people. You have an attorney, you have a VTC coordinator, and you have a part-time mentor. So 2.5 people. So even without the other speculative expenditures, what is that spend then for the 2.5 people that I assume those don't go away at the end of the grant?
No, the part-time veteran mentor, I believe what Ms. Gary did in preparing the grant was basically just an hourly salary, and I think it was around $20. I don't know the exact number, and that's speculation as well. As for the coordinator for the VTC, that's funded entirely through the OJA grant. It is not funded through this grant.
But when that grant goes away, what happens to that coordinator's position?
I do not know.
So, and these are the kinds of questions that I told you that I was going to have, that I feel before the county can sign off on these types of things, we need to know where we stand on this. Because in 4 years, you will be back, and it'll either be, this is wildly successful and I need $200,000, which I think is just with those 3 positions, probably the minimum. Or we're going to be having a difficult conversation of we're not able to fund that, and you're going to have to dissolve this program, which is wildly successful. I mean, it's a bad position, which is why before we apply for grants, we come to the Board of County Commissioners and get their permission, because we realize there's a long-term commitment on grants like this. When we're applying for a bridge grant, it's really pretty easy because when the project's done, the expenditure's over. When we're applying for grants like this, there's operations that continue after the grant ends. And those operations become the expenditure of the county. And as I've said before in this room, the county attorney's budget has grown over time, and it continues to grow. And this is another way that this is going to grow in 4 years unless you get another grant that funds this. That's my concern. I'm voicing that now. Again, it's not about the program. I think this is a wonderful program. It's about what it does for us budgetarily, and for the last year, I have been on the receiving end of lectures, appropriately so, of where we're at with our budget and what our budget is doing and how we try to control those expenditures going forward. So that's why I wanted you to come to the board today. This is not anything against you guys or the program. I need the board to hear these things so that when we make this decision, it's an informed decision. And in 4 years, we're not having the conversation if we didn't know. So I appreciate you guys coming over today. I hope you don't think that I am in some way trying to submarine your grant or anything. It's just there's a process, and I want to make sure we follow that process.
Well, no, and I don't disagree. My personal opinion to the board, it's better to have 4 years of success and in something just to see that we at least help the county for 4 years that we could afford to do, than not give them that opportunity at all. I mean, that's kind of more and if it is successful, then overall the funding for other avenues would probably be less need for other things, because we are providing a need to the community, making it safer. It's the same thing as saying that the county attorney's budget has grown, but then you neglect the fact that we have seen crime decreasing year after year. I mean, this is the 5th straight year Leavenworth has posted at least 14% or more crime. This year, 18% crime reduced, not to mention that the other cities within Leavenworth County are considered the safest county. So if you look at our budget, well, you're looking at crime going down. So I feel like there's the added benefit that we're actually helping the community with what we're doing.
A couple questions on process and what the commission's role is as opposed to the elected county attorney. This has just now come in front of the commissioners. what is our role and responsibility as far as administration and oversight of this grant as a commission? And then from a process standpoint, when we're potentially committing ourselves to a long-term expenditure down the road, it seems like maybe we should have had some advance, notice of this so we could actually read the grant and have an opportunity to review it before we come down to what this has got to be signed off on today. So can you kind of
Commissioner Stephen, members of the Commission, I do not think that the merits and need for this program have been more clearly articulated than what was done. You've got an excellent presentation. I do firmly agree with what Chris said, and that is this, that federal grants are extremely complicated. Commissioner Cause has personal experience in doing so. Commissioner Stephen, the concerns you raise are those that Mark raised with me earlier this week when I advised him to not sign that grant application without your authorization. So if there's a culprit as to why you're here this morning, mea culpa. However, that having been said, you have merits of the program, which are clear. You have the need for the program, which is clear. The devil's in the details. As Commissioner Stephen alluded, that there will be financial necessities that will be involved. Further, federal grants are not stringless. The reporting process that Commissioner Cause outlined to you is extremely important. As Mark said, this is not a bridge grant. This will be a continuing program in all likelihood. The veteran population of Limerick County is not going to go away. So the repercussions of this are positive in that it will provide a benefit to the community, a great benefit to the community, but also that there will be responsibilities that need to be addressed in the accounting, administration of this grant, the hiring of the personnel, the supervision of the personnel. So this endeavor is worthy, but it will require effort.
Is the oversight this body, or is the oversight Mr. Thompson's office?
I would only surmise that the immediate oversight is going to be through Todd's office, but you eventually are responsible for the accounting for and the expenditure of these grant funds. And I will just tell you that it is not unknown for federal grant agencies, federal agencies involved, to ask for money back.
That's
so
correct.
It's very important that we go forward in this with our eyes open, and that there is great responsibility that needs to be addressed.
So why didn't we hear about this a little earlier?
I think that was explained. It didn't.
I think the process is, again, before they apply for a grant, before anybody applies for a grant, they should come to the board if there's a financial responsibility at any point in time, and just an oversight. So before it was applied for, and I don't know when you applied for it, actually, I think it was last year sometime, that's the process. Now, I will tell you that probably in the county attorney's office, they don't apply for a lot of these grants, so they're not familiar with the process. I think the end of February is when I was made aware that they were applying or filling out the form. They had already been awarded the grant, and they had to fill out the paperwork for the grant. Then over the weekend, this past weekend, notified that again, and at that time they notified that one of their people needed access to our portal. And my response to them was, we don't grant access to our federal funding portal to outside agencies. And that was my last response. Didn't hear anything until over the weekend when they asked again, and I replied again on Monday, I think, we don't allow access to our portal to an agency we're not familiar with. They got the engagement letter that I asked for. We gave them access on Monday, and then yesterday morning before our board meeting, they emailed me, but I did not see that email until after the board meeting, actually after lunch, because I was busy up until lunch. And then when I came back, I reviewed it. Took me a little bit of time to research some of the information that was in there, and I replied to them that I could not sign it without some questions being answered, and then that instigated today's meeting.
And then I can tell you that the clerk was involved in some of this. The clerk's office filled out and provided some of the information, and the clerk has agreed to sign off on the grant if we approve moving forward with the process. So I became involved at about, 5 o'clock, 4:30, quarter till 5 yesterday afternoon, and so we called it. That's why this meeting was called. One of the things that I would like to add, though, is hopefully, if this grant is successful, I envision, and I know that our community corrections director envisions and is very supportive of the specialty courts and the specialty court systems. This would be something that I think should be expanded upon, because we need a mental health court or a drug court or specialty courts in general to begin to address some of the needs of the members of our community. Jamie, myself, and Sheriff Dedeke will be attending training or whatever you want to call it, a conference in June for the drug courts, so that we can just begin to see what it is, what it entails, and what type of commitments that involve. But and Todd is aware that the mental health task force is one of the things that they were very supportive of and involved with along the way, along with a large group of people earlier on that worked on trying to figure out how to get a veterans court or the specialty courts. And all this stuff has been going on behind the scenes, not necessarily involving the Board of County Commissioners, for several years that I know of. And so it's the concept of the veterans court is not new. The concept of specialty courts being considered and looked at, how can we potentially fund those types of things, is not new. And it is correct. I have personally been involved in many grants that after 4 years, 8 years, or whatever, I have lost jobs because the funding just wasn't there and it ended. Hopefully, we can figure out ways as a community to support this concept. But it's a growing interest at the state level, at the federal level, diverting people from the prison systems and moving them and providing the services and, quote, the wraparound services in the communities, so that these individuals who are court involved because of their mental illnesses or their substance uses, which are very much related, that they don't end up in jail and in prison. Instead, we keep them as best as we can with the services necessary. And I think that probably some of the people who are going to be involved with the Veterans Court will also receive some level of service through the Guidance Center, and that they have a grant that is yet another grant that is going to provide 24/7 type care for people who have very serious issues with mental illness, so that they are successfully taken care of in the community. So it's an ongoing thing. I think that the problem, and I do respect the fact that we should have been brought in sooner. So that is something that in the future, now you're aware, we can't just the drop of a hat make decisions. That's very difficult for the Board of County Commissioners to do. We need to be brought in early on so that we know what's coming, and that we are the people that are on the hook for funding if things aren't complied with. Because David's correct. There are times when the feds will say, we want the money back. And when it's been spent, then Todd would have to be aware that his budget would be negatively impacted because we take it from you.
Does Jeff have anything to say? Jeff? Do you have anything to say on this, guys?
Oh, this is one of those difficult things where you don't want to say no because it's free money. But we're going to get down to here in 4 years where, we've always tried to stay revenue neutral, and this is adding an expense that we don't have today. So basically we're just doing a delayed no. We're saying, hey, we'll give this a chance if we say yes today to the free grant for 4 years and get it all in place to try it out and see if it works. And basically when you have to remain revenue neutral, you find what's the lowest hanging fruit on the tree to get rid of. So we're really giving this a 4-year chance to prove that it's not the lowest hanging fruit. When we ask you to cut something in 4 years to make up for this might not be the thing that you want to cut. So I think we need to give it a chance. But just so you know, we're in a situation now where the answer is 90% of the time going to be no on any budget increases. So I don't want to say no to free money, but at the same time, I want to make sure you guys realize in 4 years when this grant money runs out, we're going to have to ask you, is this the thing you want to cut? Because you got to cut something. So that's all I got to say.
One, on the oversight, back to, will the county administrator have additional responsibilities dealing with the oversight of these grants, or will it be internal in your office? You'll have all the oversight of these grants will be in your office specifically.
The clerk is going to accept responsibility for that oversight in her office.
The clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as the Board of County, because Mark is not going to have to sign anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, my concern about this is it's just a brand new thing. I'm very definitely support the concept. So I don't want the concept that we don't. I think everyone here supports the concept.
Right.
But as far as, I hope that in the future we can figure out a way that these kind of things will not be like, I feel like it's sprung
Right.
on us, and it should not have happened that way. That's not good government.
I agree. That's why I said, calling this meeting is we should have been sooner brought into the equation so that we knew it was coming, that we could do it in a formal board, like yesterday's meeting because it was on the agenda. I'm just saying because
No,
it.
I apologize.
And I understand. I'm just saying that's probably the biggest hurdle, and so we're.
And we weren't trying. I mean,
I don't believe you were.
Lawfrey said. I mean, we're naive to this process. I think this is the first grant
Absolutely.
in 15 years of me being in office. I've even looked at trying to get. I've been very public about what my aspirations for this. I've been trying to get it for the last 10 years. This is the first, thanks to former Chief Justice Nuss and Senator Moran. We
Absolutely.
wouldn't even be in this position to have this opportunity. And I agree with Commissioner Culberson. We could be in 4 years and here either asking for money. It could not be a success, and we'll just see where it is. I'd rather give it a chance than not, because just as you said, Chair, Commissioner, if this is something that functions, because the other part of it is we have to have many different parts agreeing to coordinate. We have to have defense attorneys, this office, my office, and the judiciary. And this is one of the first times we really have the judiciary interested in trying.
Absolutely,
this.
that's what's cool.
And our judiciary has said, that they want to see if this is successful before they even think about a different specialty court.
Right. That's why I said I think that this is an amazing opportunity for future
One last question. If I could.
endeavors.
And the coordinator's whole position is to keep accountability, and that's who we're looking to hire. And if Mr. Lawfrey wants to be part of oversight of, who they're interviewing, so they have the specific knowledge of doing grants and such, I don't know if that would be an issue either, because they're the ones that are going to keep track of our statistics and coordinating everything that we have. So
Maybe we could have one of the, I think Commissioner Smith, if he's willing to, it's partial involvement because he is on it's on the juvenile board, and I'm on the adult advisory board for corrections, but just to have somebody that one of the commissioners or maybe one of the others maybe one of the commissioners would be interested involvement in just kind of tracking what's happening and so that we are aware.
Yeah, I don't want to speak because there's a committee for the Veterans Court, so I don't want to speak for that.
Right.
But I don't think there would be any issue with, and probably helpful to have more eyes on who we're hiring for a coordinator.
That's what I was talking about when you were looking at that.
Because, again, as you know, we're not grant writers. We're just attorneys that prosecute, and we would love as much help as possible making sure we have the right person in that position.
And I received an email from Judge Wiley, who's one of the big boosters of the program. I also spoke with Judge Loudon this morning about the program. The next hiring phase, Mr. Weiser and OJA have selected 3 individuals from the application pool of, I think, 12 to 15 for this position. The next stage is coming up, and I think they're going to be in person. I'll be sitting in with Judge Wiley for those interviews, and I'd be honored if any of you would like to sit in with us.
Or a designee of your choice.
Right, that's why I said it, or But that's something that we can kind of discuss. But I'm just saying that may be something to think about. But
I would actually appreciate if someone, I mean, especially someone, I mean, Mr. Lawfrey has the best insight of what type of things that we should, or whomever to heck, sit in on that interview process. Because we want to pick the right people. We want to make sure we don't cost the county any money.
right, and if Mark isn't interested, then I am willing to, and that's because I am a huge advocate for prevention. I don't think that's a secret, but I'm just saying I
think you got way too many committees. There.
Right, and that's why I was saying
think
because of
somebody
Doug's
else.
involvement in the the JCABs and all. I'm just saying just to kind of that when we have somebody that I just think that this is a good thing. I just think that we kind of need to make sure that now you understand what the process is, and I would assume that over time you may have other opportunities, funding opportunities that will come to you because of your involvement with this system now, and that you now know.
Yes, I appreciate that.
I do have one more question, and this is to Mr. Lawfrey. Could you address this? We visited on the phone about this last question about the supplanting of funds and your concerns about that.
Right. So federal grants, federal funding, you're not allowed to supplant local tax dollars with federal funding. So if you have spending in place right now that you're doing, say a position, and you move that position over to now administer, let's say, the federal funds, and you use that grant money to pay for that person, that's what would be a supplanting. You're replacing local revenue with federal revenue. It's not allowed. So this is funding specifically for new positions, new program, and it has to be spent in that manner. Otherwise, you can run into supplanting. So that's what supplanting is.
Good.
Well, does anybody else have any questions?
Answered all. We've been talking about Veterans Court for a long time.
Yes, we have.
We just got some funding to make it happen.
We just need to make people understand that if the funding isn't available because of the county attorney's budget, because there's,
Right.
or
It could go away
because of
in
other
4
grants, that this could go away, and it's at no fault, of the Board of County Commissioners or the county attorney's office, were that to happen, and hopefully that won't be the case because there is growing support for specialty courts at both the judicial level, at the legislative level. It's a growing. It saves money over time. It actually saves money. So
We appreciate you taking the time. I know it's inconvenient. We're not trying to, again, we weren't trying to do anything by surprise either. It's a new process for
Mark,
us.
we have to vote on this.
I believe you should vote on this.
Okay, ready.
To authorize
I'm ready for a motion if anybody would like a motion.
They've already,
I think
the federal.
Yeah, it's just
So it'd be authorize the county attorney to apply for a federal grant for Veterans Court.
I think the application's already we're past that point. So I think
To
it's
accept
to authorize
a federal
the
grant?
receiving federal
to
grant
receive federal funds
for
through the grant
the Veterans Court.
for the Veterans Court. Does anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Begin voting with Commissioner Culberson.
Aye. Absolutely.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries, and good luck.
thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
We're ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Anybody object? Then we're
I
adjourned.
got
One thing I want to bring up to you
Oh, you want to
guys.
bring something
What's
up on
that?
camera?
One thing I want to bring up before we.
Hey, guys,
Sorry. Just a minute, please.
One thing I wanted to bring up before we close is the 3% maximum increase in valuation.
We
bill.
can't do that. We can't talk about that.
Okay.
No, we can only talk about this.
Got it.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion and second. We've already done. Vicki?
We're adjourned.